kind of four key things that I do when I'm packing, whether I'm doing it myself and certainly if I'm giving it to a packer to pack, because these are the first three are kind of the three things I do not want done badly because it's going to give me a very, very bad day. I always make sure that the slider is uncollapsed, assuming you have a collapsible one. I'll set the toggles myself and make sure they're seated properly. And I'll set the pilot chute kill line. And usually at the end of the day, I'll untwist the brake lines. It's not quite as important as the other ones, that you don't have to do it every jump. But untwisting the brake lines, most packers aren't going to do that for you. You need to do that yourself. And the first three, you don't want them forgetting. If you're packing yourself, and there's a good YouTube video here that CSPA has, this is a good chance for you to inspect your entire rig. This is kind of what I mean by sort of continuous inspection. You want to check your main closing loop, make sure it's not damaged. If you think it's damaged, replace it. Kind of to say if you have to ask somebody if it's still good, then it's not good enough. Replace it with a new one. Check your container, look for any marks, burns, stains, things like that. Lines on your main parachute, make sure that they're still in good condition. Get rid of any twists in the steering lines. Check your slider, check the slider stops on the canopy. Take a quick look at your canopy fabric, see if there's any tears. Check your deployment bag. Those will see a lot of wear, and that can wear out pretty quickly. Your pilot chute, the kill line. You want to be checking that as well. Your 3-ring assembly and the RSL, making sure everything's tucked in. And all of this can be done as you are doing your pack job. If you see anything unusual that you're not sure about, then ask rigger. There's a whole bunch of us at the drop zones, myself, Brian Murray, Aiden, Dustin. Might be missing someone. No, I think that's it. Okay, the next one. All right. There's certain things we can do for maintenance on all of our equipment. And this is good because replacement is kind of expensive. So you can avoid that. You want to clean out your 3-ring system. If you're not sure, ask. I can show you how to do that. I like keeping an eye out for any exposed Velcro or any loose fabric and stuff. Where your RSL is often going to be Velcro on there just to make sure there isn't anything exposed that's going to be rubbing against the container and causing damage. Make sure your batteries are charged. This is especially if you have like an altimeter that's a rechargeable altimeter or something like that. Last thing you want is to be halfway through your jump and then your altimeter dies on you. That would not be very good. All the AEDs have some sort of maintenance schedule, depending on what brand and all that. Check with the manufacturer and make sure your AED is maintained and still good to use. And of course, we have our reserve inspection and repack. It's where your rigger is going to inspect the reserve, all the other things that you can't see until you open it up. So CSPA has recently changed it to a 270-day cycle. USPA down in the States is still 180 days. And then we'll talk about a bunch of these, what I call consumable items. These are kind of things that you'll need to replace. And a lot of times I don't see people replacing it and they're jumping with something that probably shouldn't be jumped with. First, your closing loops, elastic bungees, that's pretty self-explanatory. People tend to replace those. But line sets, I see a lot of parachutes with some pretty old lines on it that maybe should be replaced. The lines are not going to last as long as the parachute is. Soft links, some of the soft links are in pretty bad condition. Those do need to be replaced every so often. The pilot chute, the bridle, because of the kill line, is going to see a lot of wear. That's going to need to be replaced. Your BOC pouch, the spandex is going to stretch and then it's going to get looser and it's not going to hold the pilot chute in there as well. And that will need to be replaced. And in that picture, I had mine recently replaced and had to move it. That's just a picture of my BOC pouch off the BOC. So just a pouch. Risers often will need to be replaced as well. So it's important to inspect those. The D-bag, will need to be
with his
replaced.
camera, and he's like, "You."
And of course, the your AED has a defined lifetime as well, depending on the brand. So these are all things that will pretty much outlast your container system. All right, and lastly, storage. Especially in Canada, we have quite a few months where we're not skydiving, and our rig is going to be tucked away in the closet for a while before we use it again. The biggest cause of damage to our rig, I mean, other than sliding across the ground or something like that, is going to be UV light. We want to store the rig essentially as per the manufacturer's recommendations, which in general would be somewhere indoors, somewhere cool, somewhere dry. We want to avoid any direct sunlight or heat. I like removing the pilot chute from the BOC so we don't stretch out the spandex too quickly. And it's a good idea to unpack it and take off the elastics, especially with these new elastics that we have. They kind of get gummy and sticky over time. And that's not going to be good if it's making contact with your parachute or the D-bag for that matter. So on those long times when I'm not jumping, I'll unpack everything and take out all the elastics. And then next time I need it, I'll just repack it and put some new stuff on. All right. All right. So overall, make sure you arm yourself with knowledge, ask questions, use gear that's appropriate for you in terms of the fit, your skill, as well as your discipline. When we're using gear, we want to follow all the manufacturer's recommendations. Make sure you inspect your gear like your life depends on it, because it does. And we want to maintain our gear so it works properly. And ideally, we want to store it properly so that we can make the gear last, because this stuff is expensive. And that's about it. Stop sharing.
Awesome, Derek. Does anyone have any questions at all for Derek? If you do, you can raise your hand and then I will see you. I just wanted to make note that sometimes doing these Zoom calls, videos that we want to share are a little sketchy, but both, I think Brian and Derek both posted on the side chat bar a link to the CSPA videos that were done. There's actually 3 of them in particular. We got some cheers from Donnie and Beth there. In particular was the parachute equipment checking, and there's 3 of them. If you go to the CSPA website under safety, there is educational and safety resource link, and in there is 3 different videos for that. They are fantastic. They are in French and English, so you can choose either. Seeing no questions right now for Derek. Derek, thank you so much. And I'm sure all my riggers are busy right now with the season just around the corner. I will get you to mute yourself, and while you're doing that, I am going to get ready to get our next presenter. So weird working. All right. So I don't know that Brian Murray needs much introduction here on the island, but for those of you who are joining us from elsewhere, Brian Murray has been a long time in this sport. Not that I'm calling him old. He's a CSPA coach, instructor, and of course, a rigger at all levels. He's here today to talk to us about pre-boarding. And Brian, I'm going to pass the floor over to you. Let me just stop sharing. And the floor is all yours.
Great, thanks. And welcome to everyone. So yeah, talking about pre-boarding, and a lot of that's going to be gear checks. But before gear checks, even basically pre-boarding is, what do I need to do before I get on the airplane to be able to do a safe skydive? So, the start of that is jumper readiness. I show up in the morning at a drop zone, especially if it's the beginning of a season or a new drop zone. What are the things I want to do? Get a drop zone and aircraft briefing. Look at aerial photos, see what the landing area looks like, where are the wind indicators and wind saws, where are outs, where are hazards. Does a drop zone have specific rules about, do we do a left-hand pattern here or a right-hand pattern? That's going to vary by drop zone. if the drop's in every weekend, that's not an every weekend activity, but it's good to do. Not just at a new drop zone. I like to kind of run myself through that at the beginning of every season or anytime I've had a bit of a layoff. It's just kind of go and find out where are all the good outs again, and which ones are good and which ones are not so good, and um, just make sure I know the lay of the land, so to speak. Um, Proper gear being used, and Derek talked about this as well. For what kind of jump am I doing? If I'm free flying, I want to make sure I got something that's free fly safe. And a big one is planning your skydive. It's everybody just piles on the plane and goes and jumps out and does something, and no one knows what they're doing, and no one knows what anyone else is doing. Um, and you get close calls in the air. So plan your skydive, communicate that plan. So if you're jumping with a group, communicate within that group, but also communicate with other groups on the aircraft. So people who are getting out before you or after you know what's going on. That helps you plan what exit order should we have. Hey, what are the winds doing? How much separation do we need to leave between groups? Do practices of your jump. If you're doing a complicated climb out with a group of people, go to the mock-up and practice that, or do it on the airplane before you board. Getting into gear next. I'm going to go through talk about gear checks. You want to make sure your gear is safe. So you pull your gear out first thing in the morning. You want to look at it. What I like to do for gear checks. Sometimes the camera better here. See people sometimes they're kind of like, oh, I gotta check my 3 rings. Oh, where's my reserve pin? Oh yeah, check my handle. Yeah, check. Oh, what about my main? I forgot to check that. And see people bouncing around all over the place. It's really easy to miss things doing that. So I like to do my method to not miss things is I do either the back or the front first. Top to bottom. When I'm doing the harness, I start one side, top to bottom, other side, top to bottom. So if I'm starting here, I'm going to go down, check my 3 rings, my RSL, check my handles, so on. While I'm talking about 3 rings, I'm going to just show a few photos here for a moment. Oh, I got too many windows open on too many monitors. Go. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, it looks really good.
All right.
Or does it?
Or does it? Oh, you're talking about the 3 ring itself and not the photo. And just bear with me while I bring up the Zoom thing I'm looking for. I did a dry run last night and now it's moved things on me. Like drawing on a photo. Well, it's kind of, wow.
Isn't it at the bottom? Here's a window.
No. Yeah, all right. Zoom's not cooperating, but that's all right. So I wanted to show some photos because I often find, especially working with students and offices, people, I get students and they're doing a gear check and they say, okay, I'm checking my 3 ring. And I say, okay, well, what are you looking for? And sometimes you kind of get that deer in the headlights look and the sort of vague hand wavy answers, and people aren't really 100% sure. Most of the more experienced jumpers out there listening probably do know this well enough, but may not have seen it. And, I kind of thought, well, first jump courses, we teach people how to recognize malfunctions by showing you photos of malfunctions. And when we're teaching packing, we're like, well, how do you learn to identify an entanglement? Well, we take a rig and we entangle it and give it to you. And so you learn to identify those by seeing them. So I want to look at what it should look like in a few ways you may see it misrouted. So this is what it should look like, a properly assembled 3 ring. So the key points, each ring goes through only one other ring. So this, you see the small ring going through the middle ring and only the middle ring. The middle ring goes through the big ring. The white loop at the top is going through only through the small ring. And if you look off on the right-hand side where the yellow cable is, you can see the grommet. The ripcord housing coming up has a housing, or has a fitting on the end with that grommet. Loop goes through that grommet, and then the yellow cable. I don't know why my photo keeps doing that. If you look, a good way to think of this is we're making a sandwich of fabric and metal, like a big clubhouse sandwich. So inside the big ring, you can see there's that chunk of fabric, and then you got metal, you got fabric, metal, then you got fabric, which is a white loop. And if you look off on the right-hand side, there's that grommet is metal and white loop is fabric again. So you're going fabric, metal, fabric, metal, fabric, metal, fabric. Here's one that's not. And by the way, all these misroutings that I'm showing are all things I've seen for real happen around drop zones. Some of them have made them onto airplanes. Some of them have been jumped. And I've seen these cause risers break on deployment and one side lets go. I've also seen it damage three-ring hardware to the point that you couldn't cut away if you had a malfunction. So that's why we check these. This one probably fairly obvious. If you look at the white loop at the top, that's not going through just one ring, it's going through two. Actually a pretty easy one to do by mistake if you're not paying attention. And if you look at your sandwich, you're going fabric, metal, fabric, fabric. Oh, I got fabric, fabric, not fabric, metal, fabric. So there's your, fails your sandwich test. Here's another one, a little harder to do that one by mistake, especially on the mini rings. A little easier if you have big rings. Middle ring goes through the big ring, small ring's going through two rings. It's going through the big ring and the middle ring. So that sandwich is going fabric, fabric, metal, metal. And here's another one. Obviously, on the right-hand side, if you look at the yellow cable not going through the grommet on the housing, that's almost guaranteed to let go on deployment. So there we go. So three rings. I'm just going to finish with what it should look like. Each ring only through one other ring, white loop through only one ring, and make sure you're going through the grommet on the end of the housing before the yellow cable. All right. So back to your checks. Let's start off. Here's my geek rig. I'm going to start at the top, work my way down. We talked about three rings. We've also got an RSL if you have one, which a lot of us do. Check your RSL, make sure it's properly hooked up. Working down. As you're going, everything you're looking at, looking for any obvious damage. If you see a chunk missing out of your webbing, that's an issue. Housings, or handles, here's my reserve ripcord handle. Make sure it's not sitting there dangling or halfway out of the pocket. Make sure it's properly seated. Leg straps, not twisted around. Everything's in decent condition. Same thing on the other side. I should mention, your riser covers are closed. Three rings. Same thing down to checking condition as we go. Cutaway handle. This one a little low. There we go. And no leg strap. Not twisted. AED is here. So that's part of on this side. If I'm doing this at the airport, I would turn the AED on now. I'm going to talk about AEDs a bit later, just because for Skydiving Vancouver Island, we've got some extra things to think about for AEDs. On the back, I'm gonna do the same thing I did on the front. Start at the top, work my way down. So the first thing I see is reserve ripcord cover, reserve pin cover. Gonna open it up. Check that my pin is properly seated. If you got this style of pin, you want to see where it there's a shoulder where it tapers. Should just be almost kind of on the edge of the grommet. I know it's probably hard to see that on Zoom. Check the condition of the reserve closing loop. If it's starting to look fuzzy like my cat, talk to your rigger, get that replaced. Also got the other end of the RSL here. So check that your RSL looks the way it should. Depends on your rig. This one has the RSL ring. It goes between two other rings. Not all rigs are the same, so some have 3 rings here, some have 2. Also, good idea while you're here, just pull your reserve ripcord cable, make sure it moves freely through the housing. The other end just slid up on me on the front down here. I can pull that back down. You know, if you land or you're in the packing area, you get a little pebble or something goes inside your housing and that doesn't slide. Now's the time to find it and not when you need to deploy it. All right. Sure that's properly closed. Down to the main. So looking at the pin and want to make sure that's properly seated. So curve pin, you want to make sure it's, you know, 1/2 to 3/4 of the way in. Check that your bridle is routed properly. If you're not sure how it routes, you can look at your manual. It can vary from rig to rig. If you don't have a manual, go to the manufacturer's website. You can download them. They're free. Ask a rigger, ask somebody knowledgeable if you need help with it. Most of us have collapsible pilot chutes. Check the window. You should see a kill line in there, has some color, tells you it's cocked. And make sure all your bridle is tucked in underneath the flap. And your pilot chute. You want to make sure it looks, well, not like this one, which has a bunch of fabric sticking out. This starts flapping around, which does 2 things. It makes it harder to find because it's moving, and as it flaps, it does this. So I like to actually shove it right down inside, get the whole pilot chute in, and then pull just the handle out, gets more bulk deeper into the pocket. There's your handle, or your pilot chute. Okay, let's talk about AEDs. So a couple things about AEDs we got to know. When you're turning it on, first of all, a lot of multi-mode AEDs now. You can be, you know, pro mode, speed mode for swooping, tandem mode. You can do a some, you know, Cypress has one that has like a wingsuit Cypress. There's all sorts of. Make sure you're in the right mode, that it didn't somehow get changed accidentally. You know, if you're in tandem mode and that's going to deploy at around 2,000 feet, and that's going to ruin your skydive. We have an offset at Skydive Vancouver Island because we don't land on the airport. We take off at the airport and then jump somewhere else. And where we land is about, I think, 140 feet higher. So make sure you know how to offset your AED. Again, your manual has instructions. You can download manuals for free from manufacturer websites again. Talk to a rigger or somebody who has that model of AED and knows how to set the offset. So make sure that offset is set. The other thing about not landing on the airport that's really important with AEDs, your AED only knows how high you are by pressure. So it measures, you turn it on the ground, it measures the air pressure and says, all right, this air pressure corresponds to the ground. And now as you go up, it knows, well, pressure changes by this much per 1,000 feet. I can calculate the altitude. But it needs to be zeroed to the right spot. So if you turn it on at the drop zone and drive in the van to the airport and get on the airplane, it's possible that your AD could still be zeroed to the drop zone, or it woke up, reset itself, re-zeroed partway on the drive, and now you're not, you know, who knows what altitude it's zeroed to. So when you know, in the morning, I get to the drop zone, take my gear out, I do my gear check, except for turning on the AAD. When I get to the airport, then I turn the AED on and do another gear check. After you've done a jump, you're like, hey, I'm getting on the second load. When you get to the airport, turn your AED off and back on again, because you need to ensure that it's zeroed to the right ground reference point. And this is true of every model. Every manufacturer says it has to be turned off. And the rule is basically, if you're at the airport about to get on the airplane and the AED and the rig has been somewhere other than the airport since you last turned it on, then you need to turn it off and turn it back on again. All right. So, and for people if people are coming to SVI that haven't jumped here before, the regulars all know how to offset it. So don't be shy. Ask, when you're at the airport, going, how do I do this? Someone will give you a hand with it if you need it for sure. That about covers for the rig. Remember, you've got other equipment other than just your rig. So you have your altimeter. You might want to offset that as well because the landing area is higher than the airport. So if you set your altimeter to 0 at the airport, it's not going to be 0 at the landing area. On an analog altimeter, doesn't really matter. If you've got a digital altimeter and you're setting up, a 270-degree turn to swoop, and you're basing that altitude off your digital altimeter, it might matter now. So, know if you need to offset that and know how to offset it for your altimeter. Audible altimeter is turned on. Goggles, if you have them, make sure you have your goggles. Gloves, if you're using them, have your helmet. And speaking from experience, really try to at SVI, because we have the van ride to the airport, make sure you're checking all those things before you get in the van instead of before you get in the airplane. I've done it more than once, gotten to the airport and gone, I have a rig and nothing else. And I can tell you it's no fun. So make sure you got your rig, but make sure you have all your other things before you go. Yeah, that's about it. So that is pre-boarding. Any questions from anybody on anything?
Thanks, Brian. You're always so thorough on things. I love it. I just want to add to the conversation about AAD. I don't know how many people actually realize this, but many of the AADs have an automatic switch off at around 14 hours.
Yeah.
And so what you need to know is even if you are in the middle of a skydive, if you turned on your AAD 14 hours prior, it will turn off, even though you're in the air having exited the plane. So it's really important. I mean, obviously at Skydive Vancouver Island, as Brian said, we turn on and off our AADs before every jump. But obviously at other drop zones, Skydive Vancouver, or if you're, at Campbell River or you're Skydive Toronto, you're loading the planes there. And there can be really long days in the summer. So if you turn your AAD on because you go on the first jump at 7 a.m. and you're on a sunset jump at 9 p.m., you are at risk that your AAD may turn off. So it's really important that you guys are watching on those long days, that you're checking that AAD, and you should be checking that AAD every jump. And I also just wanted to add to that, as people with more experience, you're the ones who get complacent. You guys doing gear checks is vitally important to your own life, but it also leads the example that our novice jumpers, they're seeing that. So it doesn't matter how many jumps you have. Gear checks are lifesavers. So I just wanted to add that. And then just a question I have for you, Brian, even though I know the answer. If you do set an offset in your AAD, when you turn it off and turn it back on, is your offset still in there, or do you have to reset that?
That depends on what kind of AAD you have. If it's a Cypress, you have to reset it, although it's quicker the second time because it knows that it will remember what offset. If you go to set an offset, it remembers what offset you last used, and it will offer you that option first, so it saves you a bit of time. If you have a Vigil, it remembers it. So if you're jumping at SVI for the whole weekend, you go home to somewhere else, and you turn your AD on, the Vigil's going to still have the offset programmed in. The Mars M2, I can't remember off the top of I should know this. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think you might have to do it every time, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think that speaks. Make sure you guys read your manuals, because everything is different.
Yeah. And like I said, they're free on the website. And
exactly.
Good, by the way, Allison, good point about that 14-hour shut off. And the other way it gets people is you show up at the drop zone for sunset load, get on the load, you get up in the morning, hungover from last night's party, you grab your rig, you're like, oh, my AD's already on, great. And now it shuts off partway through the day. And like Elson said, if you're in free fall, it doesn't care, it's shutting off.
Does anyone have any questions for Brian? What equipment? No? Well, Brian, thank you so much. I appreciate that. While you're muting yourself, I am going to share for our next presenter. I'm excited to welcome Ben Kirkland. As some of you guys know Ben through the skydiving industry for many, many years. Ben got his pilot's license and was our 182 pilot last year. We're excited to have Ben on again for the 2026 season, flying our 206. But for today, Ben is going to give a presentation about the flight. So everything to do in the plane. Ben, I will ask you to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Excellent. The floor is all yours. Yes, I can.
Sounds good. So we'll just go from approaching the plane safely. Obviously, well, not always approaching the plane from behind, especially when the engine's running and the propeller's turning. Sticking together as well. It just helps a lot for other pilots on the apron, just making sure not everyone's all over the place so that we can just see where you guys all are. And then getting into the plane, general seating arrangements, doesn't matter as much in the 182, but in the 206, it's definitely helpful for us to have more of the weight forward on the plane for takeoff, because that 206 can get rear heavy and it's easier to stall the plane, or it's just more unstable. And so having the heavier pilots, heavier jumpers up front is helpful for the pilots. And also just on takeoff, trying to keep your weight forward as much as possible is great. Getting in the plane, general respect for others. This is just kind of like basic manners. Like when you're sitting in the plane, it's nice to not be just sprawled out everywhere. You have to think about who else is in the plane and how much space you're taking up. You kind of want to always be thinking like small and where your body parts are, because you could be making someone's ride up very uncomfortable for 20-25 minutes, which is just not really nice. And then also adding to that also helps with like where if you're all sprawled out and you don't know where your body parts are, you could be snagging people's equipment, damaging it, pulling handles, and so on. So just making sure you're kind of like keeping to yourself. I know obviously they're really small planes and they're very tight, but it just having that situational awareness is very important. So on the way up, that for everybody, it's just keeping your eyes open as well. And, like maybe one time in the ride up, check your own equipment and then have a look at the guy sitting beside you, like just keeping an eye out for each other in general, helping, keeping each other safe. Sorry, I'm just going to pull my notes back up here. So yeah, just, check your own and then check the guy beside you. And if everyone's doing that, then we can all just keep each other safe. What's helpful for the pilots is kind of staying still If you're moving around a lot, it's just it means the pilot has to retrim every single time, and it makes the efficiency of the ride up not as good. And yeah, it's just another thing that, you know, we have to do. I mean, it's not a big deal doing it once or twice, but like, yeah, just staying still helps with efficiency and the pilot not having to retrim every single time you move. As we get up to altitude, you know, you're going to have to be moving around, turning around, getting yourself ready to go. So doing that in a efficient manner, you know, helping each other out. Maybe somebody's not as flexible as another person. So if you need to help your buddy get up and turn around, that's great. And just watching again for gear and everything. And on once you're up there, it's going to be time to jump. So basically, the way we do it is when the door is open, the pilot's basically saying that yes, it's safe to jump. So have a look at the spot. If you think you're too far or something, get someone else to look, or just ask your pilot and he'll either reaffirm with you, because we're also watching on ForeFlight how far away we're getting from the spot. So if it's getting too far, I mean, I'm quite good at it because I've been jumping for 15 years. So if it is getting too far, I'll generally let you know, or, you know, I have made mistakes as well and dropped people too far, but that's generally the job of the jumper to realize that. And if you're in free fall, you know, you also have the option of opening early, which is a great option to a far spot. You can get yourself back and safely at the drop zone. But that, again, that's just general situational awareness. And so also with different ground speeds on that jump run, we try to yell it out. Sometimes we'll forget, but if you've already done one jump, you should know the general ground speed, or like of what jump run is, and just keeping to those spacing seconds that Gord has there written out at the drop zone, because if you're leaving too soon or too late, it can lead to a variety of issues of drift and free fall, getting pushed over other jumpers, or, you know, going too far on the spot. So I'm going to go over some aircraft emergencies. And the big ones that we have are going to be basically the main ones that could be an issue are going to be like early deployments off the door. And generally, what we want to do with that is, if you notice anything, especially if the jumper is outside already, we got to get that person off the plane as soon as possible. So if you're climbing out and you see your friend's pilot chute come off, or reserve handle hanging off, fluttering in the wind, just push them off, because it's just not worth a parachute going out. Even if it's just a handle coming at, like, loose, just push them off, because it's not worth a parachute coming out and taking the tail off. You know, that's the things we got to avoid for sure. And yeah. So if the jumper is inside, if you see anything loose, grab that jumper, pull them inside. If you see any issue of it, if a pilot chute or something is outside, the jumper's inside, and you're gonna have to use your instincts, and but generally just get that jumper outside and away from the plane as soon as possible. And yeah, and then for wingsuiters, everyone's pretty good, but it's not really an issue on Cessna planes. But keeping that inflation delayed a good couple seconds after leaving the aircraft is great. So the other main emergencies that could happen are going to be aircraft emergencies, which, as we all know, we had one last year. So I just wanted to go over things that you could expect in an aircraft emergency. Another thing just to go over quickly, if you notice equipment problems in the aircraft, you want to get that fixed as soon as possible. There's no reason that you would have to go down in the plane if you have an equipment malfunction. Like, let's say you notice your friend's chest strap is routed incorrectly, and you guys are capable of fixing that. That's like, should have been checked on the ground, but if get that fixed, or let's say a pilot chute comes out on the flight up, we can fix that. We're all capable humans, just making sure it's done correctly and get it checked by the most experienced person in the plane. And on the ride up, equipment problems in the aircraft happen all the time, and they can be fixed. Just doing it in a good way that's not going to inhibit anyone else's gear. And we can have aircraft malfunctions, whether it's pilot error or aircraft error. These things happen, and so basically, let's go over on takeoff. There's a chance that for some reason under 1,000 feet we could have, or under, we'll say 1,500, we could have engine failures, or basically the big issue would be an engine failure. In that situation, generally that's going to be right off the runway. So under 1,500 feet, we're going to be close to the ground. We're going to keep you guys in the plane, but basically off the runway, we're probably not going to be turning around and landing on the runways. So you can expect to be landing in a field somewhere, maybe the golf course or the highway at those low altitudes, especially on a fully loaded plane. So just making sure you guys are keeping still, listening to what the pilot has to say, and expecting a rough landing. Above 1,500 feet, we're going to have more of an option to possibly getting jumpers out of the plane. So more experienced people, just be vigilant of who's in the plane. Remembering, like, of all your activation altitudes, those rules of having a main deployed are still valid. So in some cases, you may be going straight to your reserve, because you also have your AED in there, which could be firing off at lower altitudes. I'm not sure when the student AED goes off, but I think it's at quite a high altitude. So student would be going straight to reserve in some cases. But this is all at the discretion of the pilot, so be listening in to what he has to say. In general, if it's a full engine failure, it's nice to get, you guys all have parachutes. It's going to be nice to get you guys out of the plane in case, you know, it's not a very nice landing. So you guys all know the route that you normally take. Sometimes it's different, but at higher altitudes with any engine failures, your pilot's going to be thinking about we're always thinking about, if this happens, what are we going to do, right? So engine failures at higher altitudes, like, we're going to try and get you guys back to the drop zone on our way back to the airfield. Generally, we're within gliding distance of the airport, so you can expect us to either be thinking about dropping you at the airport or at the drop zone, depending on where we are and at what altitude we are. So that's something that you guys can think about too. Like, okay, let's say there is an engine failure. Where could I be landing right now? Like, if the pilot wants us to get out, where could we be landing? But in general, we're going to get you guys back close enough, because an engine failure, or because of whatever, maybe pilot made a mistake, didn't put enough fuel in, or mechanical error, whatever it is, it just means we're a glider. So we can glide you guys back. If we're south of the drop zone, we can glide you. The drop zone is on the way to the airfield. And then if we're just going straight to the airfield, that's an option as well. Generally, it would be a good idea to get out and open your parachute right away, so you can have that more options to get back to a safe landing area. Let's think about, I'm just going through, this is all in the PIM here as well. So if you want to go over whatever I'm talking about, you can have a look as well. That's pretty much it. Landing with the plane. So in any case, if the weather's deteriorated to the point where, or if, I don't know, for any reason, there's multiple reasons why you would need to land with the plane. Making sure everything's secure. There are seat belts in the plane. It'd be great if you should be fastening those seat belts and for landing, and then just enjoying the ride down. Main thing is just, seat belts and fastening your helmets and all that. And I don't think I have anything else to say. I probably missed a lot of stuff because I made notes, but I don't know if anyone has anything else to add. Please feel free.
Well, thank you, Ben. I think one of the good things you were talking about for emergency procedures is every drop zone is different, and where you climb over and what you're climbing over certainly makes decisions in when you exit an aircraft in an emergency procedure. Obviously, if you're in the middle of Alberta, you're not too worried about much. The ground is all the same in Saskatchewan. In BC, we fly sometimes over mountains, and so you might be at 4,000 feet, but you're only 1,000 feet from the side of a mountain. So I'm just making sure
that's definitely something. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with. We're going to try and get you back to a safe place to to get out of the plane.
I love it. Does anyone have any questions for Ben? We're good. Well, Ben, while you're muting yourself, we're going to get ready for our next speaker. Bear with me. And so our next speaker today is going to be Dustin Renz. Dustin is the chief instructor at Skydive Vancouver Island. He also wears many hats as a coach, instructor. He's an LF with CSPA. He's also the chair for the Coaching Working Committee, which is the CWC. So lots of experience there. Today, he's going to talk to us about the skydive, the portions in the air that you all need to know. So without further ado, Dustin, I am handing it off.
Hell yeah. All right, I'm going to try. I'm not that familiar with Zoom. I'm a Teams guy, so let me know if this doesn't work. That's the wrong screen. All right, hang on 1 second. This is my safety day folder.
I love it.
I have 2 screens, so it's not wanting to cooperate here. Oh, there, we got it. Does that look right?
It looks right on our end so far.
All right.
It says
all right, so perfect. So hi, awesome to see all your faces again. Can't wait to get back out skydiving. Covering the little bit of the exit, but mostly with the free fall to deployment. This is the part of the skydive where things go quickly, where all your planning and gear and stuff adds up to these moments, right? This is arguably the most fast-paced, dynamic, action-packed part of the jump. You're dealing with other people, altitude, speed, and everything all happening at once. I know we've talked in the past. Everybody's heard of the chain of events, how any negative incident occurs within a chain. So this is where all those little chains adds up to something bigger. Right, we covered some of the gear stuff, some of the planning and preparation. Here's where it becomes problematic. Any free fall issues, most of them are addressed before you ever get in the plane with the planning. So I really want to stress like the equipment planning, that sort of thing before we encounter any problems within free fall. So I know Ben talked about this a little bit, but pre-exit, the thing I'm going to preach the most is awareness. Even just for all aspects of your skydive, awareness is the number one issue. Lots of things can be rectified by just paying attention, making a plan, being familiar with your equipment, those sorts of things. So get ahead of it before it becomes an actual problem. Awareness includes being familiar with the aircraft. There's lots of opportunities to learn within the aircraft, get familiar with the instruments. I'm sure Ben will be happy to explain to you some of the instruments, but I look at the instruments almost every jump. Gives you lots of information about ground speeds and all that good stuff. I know Ben already mentioned, but move about the plane cautiously. It's very easy to bump into other people's equipment, especially in a Cessna drop zone. I've seen handles get pulled. I've knocked my own pin out, and a D-bag fell out of the back of my rig. So just be very cautious about that. And of course, be cautious when you're exiting that you're not bumping your handle as you leave the aircraft. So handles checks. I know we're all told to do this and everybody says they do it, but really actually do it. And I don't mean just touching your handles real quick. Physically grab them and see if they're seated. see, like, know the placement, and that includes your main pilot chute handle also. If you have the opportunity, you can also, well, if you can reach, I reach back and check my pin on every jump to make sure it's seated where I want it. But people are all there to help each other, so utilize them. Get a pin check. There's literally no harm that could possibly come from having somebody check your pin for you. At this stage is kind of the point where we transition from a mental rehearsal to focusing on our surroundings. So, start paying attention to the plane, to the conditions, that sort of thing. There's lots that can go on outside the aircraft. Clouds, unexpected clouds. You should have a good idea of where you are in relation to the drop zone before the door even opens. Yeah, so just be aware that, things can and do change. This is not the time to make plans. I've seen people coming up with last minute ideas of being super creative and coming up with weird things. Plan your jump on the ground and then jump your plan in the sky. Exit. So I'm going to really drive home spotting, and spotting has kind of become like a fading art almost. Back when many of us were learning out of a Cessna, we actually had to spot and tell the pilot where to go and that sort of thing. So spotting is more than just kind of eyeballing and winging it and to get an idea where you're going. It's really about understanding the winds and the drift and that sort of thing. Gord does a pretty good job at this drop zone of posting all the winds and stuff and coordinating with the pilots when to open the door, for example. But the downside to that is people aren't honing those spotting skills. So take a moment to actually look at the winds on the board and understand why that spot was chosen, and ask Gord or I or whoever will be happy to explain it to you, because there's a lot of factors that actually go into spotting. Obviously, group separation is a big thing. We do tend to at SVI to post the times for the separation, but you should already really, I like to stress more than the time is the actual separation. You want to aim for about a 45-degree separation, right? Sometimes winds could be not what you expected up top, and you could have tighter or longer spots between groups. So you really should be paying attention to the group in front of you or that's left before you to make sure you have that adequate separation rather than just focusing on seconds. And I know a lot of people that come from other drop zones, from some of the bigger drop zones, they're told no 7-second delay, 7-second delay, but there's a lot more to it than just counting and leaving the aircraft. You really should be paying attention to the group ahead of you. So that's kind of a skill that doesn't necessarily get utilized more when everybody's just super focused on the amount of seconds between groups. Plan for the unplanned. So work into your dirt dives that something's going to go wrong. People fall off the plane. Things change very quickly. I was out on, I had climbed out to do a hop and pop one time, and the drop zone was on fire. So, like, work these things into your jump plan and have a plan for those situations. Not necessarily the drop zone being on fire. That's not particularly a common occurrence, but you never know. At the end of the day, the final decision to jump rests with you. There is no shame in calling off a jump. I've called off jumps at the door. Things didn't work out the way I wanted it to, or clouds moved in. I think there's a lot of reluctance on the jumper's part to really utilize this decision-making process because they don't want to screw the people behind them. But you are responsible for your own safety. The pilot opens the door in the correct area. The pilot does not make sure that all conditions underneath you are safe to go. That onus rests on you as a skydiver. All right, free fall. Meat missiling. So you want to obviously avoid thundering someone out of the sky, but something to practice is to point away from the person that you're trying to close the gap to. We've all learned a stadium approach in FS skydiving, but this is something that does take people out of the sky. So just be cognizant of where you're aiming when you're closing a gap. Zoo dives, my favorite subject. A dive with no plan is basically adding another link to the chain of unfortunate events. You can have fun without being completely stupid and not having a plan. But zoo dives can and do end horribly with handles getting pulled or worse, somebody getting injured. And these zoo dives don't, the problem didn't start in free fall. The problem started with jump plan. So I'm going to go back to stressing making a proper jump plan and considering, some of the dangers associated with your jump plan. Awareness of other groups. So when you're in free fall, you should know where to expect the other groups. You should know people behind you. Know where your other group partners are above and below you, that sort of thing. I did a jump. I remember distinctly doing a jump, doing a video for a tandem, and halfway through, looking at parachutes underneath me because a tracking group didn't aim correctly. So pay attention to those things because they may save your butt. Again, jump your plan. This is not the time to be changing jump plans unless completely necessary, but getting creative in free fall is not the time to be doing interesting things and surprising things because you're just adding another link really into a chain of incidents that could end up far worse. Altitude awareness. So I know this is something we always stress, but really altitude awareness is underappreciated, particularly as newer skydivers. It's super easy to get distracted. In fact, in all my group FS or two-way FS jumps, I tell my novices that I am going to intentionally try and distract you and call you over when you should be tracking away and deploying. And I would say most of them end up not paying attention and coming over to me anyway. So that's something that really needs to be driven home is that altitude awareness is so important. It kills people really. If you're not paying attention to your altitude, you're adding another link. Hopefully you have your AD turned on, but if you don't, it's not going to end well for you. So get ahead of it. Practice this and certainly if you're a coach, encourage your novices to pay attention to this. Minimize the distractions. Break off and deployment. So this is kind of the time where your mistakes become less and less recoverable as you run out of time at altitude. Obviously, tracking and breaking off and tracking is an important part of the successful end of our skydive. And then tracking is a skill that um, that takes time to develop. Obviously, pay attention to the appropriate direction, but pay attention to others too. There's tons of Friday Freakout videos where you see people tracking in the same direction. I've had people open extremely close to me under parachute. Um, so it's just something that it's not just pointing in a direction and going for it. You really need to pay attention to your surroundings. Wave off. Don't neglect this piece. It's an important communication piece to other jumpers. Uh, don't just flick your wrists a little bit, but give a good wave off. This is your signal to, if you haven't been paying attention or someone hasn't been paying attention to you, tell them that you were about to deploy your parachute. And there's obviously, it goes without saying, the hazards associated with deploying your parachute. Um, feel the need to say it again, but we've all heard the phrase that don't sacrifice altitude for stability. Your pull time is your pull time. You always pull at your designated altitude. I have had novices and jumpers in my load that have jumped at, an example is I jumped at 3,000 feet and has did 11 seconds of free fall, and the excuse was that they couldn't get stable in time. And it doesn't matter. You pull at your designated pull time, and that's something we all need to stress to each other. Obviously, pay attention to your surroundings. Expect canopy traffic. Expect things not to go perfectly. Expect those things. Uh, anticipate that you're going to have a hard pull, for example. If you treat every pull as a hard pull, then you're less likely to actually have a difficult time deploying your parachute. Anticipate canopy avoidance. The more people we add in the air, the more possibilities for traffic. And places like Skydive Arizona has a tally chart of canopy collisions that have caused fatalities. So don't be one of those statistics. This is a time to fly through your deployment and pay attention and be prepared for things to go wrong. All right, we're gonna watch a little video. I want you, it's only a minute or something like that, but I want you to really pay attention to not just what is happening, but why it's happened. And this is a video I show to all my novices when I'm coaching FS about how easy it is to get distracted in free fall. So we'll talk about the clip afterwards, but pay attention to some of the and think about why this has happened. Oh, Friday freak out. That's a video that like I said, I showed to my novices. And I find it actually really drives this point home to them. So what went wrong? I'm going to unmute if somebody wants to chime in, if I can figure out how to unmute everybody, but Allison, I might need your help.
Yeah, people can actually, one at a time, just kind of unmute yourself if anyone wants to step in, or if someone wants to raise their hands, and then I can unmute you.
Any takers? What went wrong in this skydive?
Someone want to?
Sounds like some altitude awareness issues.
Oh, I think someone said something.
Clearly, sir, I have two screens up. I can't see who's talking, but yeah, clearly there's altitude awareness issues, right? What else went wrong?
I got really fixated on the task at hand, like trying to dock with a person. They're getting, having trouble docking. They're getting really close, and you got the, oh, I'm almost there, we can get it. And just so kind of similar to target fixation, kind of task fixation, I guess, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, of course. And this is something when you're starting out, when particularly getting your two-way in Group FS, that it's so easy to do. You're so focused on the task and closing the gap that you're not paying attention to your altitude. And that's why I literally tell people that I'm going to keep calling you over, but you should not come over at your designated altitude. Yeah, so
Dustin, did I see both are wearing cameras?
yeah, that's correct. So they were both wearing cameras. I'm not actually familiar with their experience level, but that would tell me they might be a little more experienced. But if I took a good look at the exit, and they don't jump like they're very experienced. So
No, they don't.
but
They
yes,
don't
they
jump
are
like
wearing
that.
cameras.
200 jumps.
Yeah, that's something I did notice too, right?
And just to point out, Spencer just commented they had great smiles, having fun, but the ground came up quick. Yes, that is the fun side of an AAD fire. And Frank, you had said, would an audible help? Audibles do help, but you can't rely on your technology. You need to know your own altitude awareness.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And some people would argue that an audible early on in your skydiving, it actually is counterintuitive, right? It teaches people to just rely on the sound rather than paying attention to their altitude. I know some schools of thought have been that, oh, you should have at least 100 jumps before wearing an audible, that sort of thing. And there is some merit in that. We get more and more technology and neat knickknacks and devices, but really, are you losing practice at your other skills that's involved with altitude awareness? But yeah, that's a good point.
Quick point from Dennis. I don't think he even looked at his altimeter once. I could be mistaken, but he didn't even glance at it.
Yeah, like altitude was not really a consideration with these guys. What do we think led to this outcome? Any thoughts there?
Complacency.
Complacency would be, if we were to summarize it in one word, complacency would probably be it for sure.
Yeah, did they have a plan?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm trying to drive home here, is that this is the final link in the chain of events that had caused this skydive to go very wrong. So to your point there, what are some of the things that we don't see that could have contributed? So having a plan is one of them. What else?
Maybe not a community of safety focused drop zone. And I don't like coaches, instructors, like what at that community where they're jumping, are they strongly safety focused, or is it more of a rodeo show and kind of just letting those things go. Lack of education and those kind of things.
Right, like this wasn't it definitely, and this also wasn't even a crazy skydive. There's no big group. It wasn't a complicated plan or anything like that. Uh, there's a lot of potential factors. You know, was the camera a factor? Trying to show off to their friends. This really went wrong before anybody stepped foot in the plane, in my view. What we're seeing here is the final link, and it's really easy to judge it based off of that. But if any AIM reports and fatalities and injuries have taught us anything, it's never the final link in the chain that causes the problem. That's the outcome of a series of problems that have already occurred. So I'm not going to beat that to death, but it's all these factors that lead up that might seem relatively small. You know, trying something new that you never done before, it has consequences, and the more variables that you add into it, the more dangerous your skydive becomes. So that's all I want to say about free fall. Stay aware, stay in control. You have to respect your altitude, be as predictable as possible, and eliminate links in the chain. And that's all I have to say about that. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Dustin. I would just like to make a positive note on that video is that at least somebody did gear checks. AAD fired and saved those guys' lives. So if we can always look at some of the negative things and areas of opportunity, but a positive thing is gear checks were done. AADs fired and saved lives indeed. You can see how quick that happens. Any questions for Dustin? And so just before I go on next, we're going to have Beth speaking next. And we've been doing this at 7:30. We may run a little bit over, but for those of you who aren't from Skydive Vancouver Island, the last part of our presentation is specific to our drop zone. We welcome you all to stay because we hope you all visit. But just so you know, we're still in this, and Beth is next. So Beth, just before just give me a second to introduce you and share.
I'll be super quick, unlike usual. I'll be super quick.
So for those of you, this is Beth Graves. She is a coach here on the island and has been skydiving for a while, a long while. Lots of experience.
For a minute.
Just for a little bit. And also a phenomenal skier. She today is going to be talking to us about canopy and landing. So without delaying you, Beth, I will let you get going with the presentation.
I will try to figure out how to share my screen again. Hello, everyone. We'll figure this out. For those of you who don't know me, I did see a few faces or a few names I wasn't super familiar with, but as Allison said, I have been around for a minute. Is everyone seeing, I think, this screen? You see my PowerPoint, right?
It says canopy and landing. Don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Okay, so we're set. So I know you had a lot going on your slide there, Allison, but 15 minutes isn't really going to be enough time to cover absolutely everything. So I'll do my best and just cover what I think are some of the most important. And I do love me some engagement. So put little hearts, put little clapping, laughing faces, put little middle fingers if you like. But whatever you need to do, please engage with the content. It is here for your viewing pleasure. So with these 15 minutes, I want to cover just the most important topic that we have. Because no matter what kind of jump you're doing, solo, belly, angle, wingsuit, whatever, you always end it with a canopy ride and landing. Well, hopefully you have a canopy ride and landing. Anyway, you will land, guaranteed. So the canopy topic is subtitled, Don't Be a Dick, because this time under canopy is the best time that we can be a menace to each other. Intentionally or not, we can cause a lot of harm to ourselves and each other if we don't treat the canopy ride with a healthy dose of anxiety. So let's look at how we can just fly a pattern and land safely without being a dick to each other. So most of the time, our canopy ride and landing is done with others all around. So we're going to look at a few safety tips for flying safely with others, and then we'll look very briefly at flying a pattern, and then a couple of tips for landing. This little agenda is especially for Derek Smith and our PPAF, people looking for PPAF, just so you know. So if you've seen my safety day presentations before, you'll know we typically start with a poll. So here's the poll. I'm going to read the questions and answers, and then you'll type your answer in the chat, but don't press enter until I say, okay? So just type your answer, but don't press enter. So here is the poll, if I can get my clicking working. When can a canopy collision occur? On or immediately after deployment, on final approach and landing, when you're under your main canopy, if someone's under reserve, between people on the same jump, between people in different groups, or any time during the canopy ride, or finally, all of the above. So everyone go ahead and type your answers and get ready to press enter now. Oh, you guys are so smart. And some of you have probably seen my presentations before, and you know that the answer is always all of the above. So anytime more than one canopy is out at one time, you can have a collision. And actually, as you can see in this lower picture, you can pretty much have a collision even just with your very own canopy. So here's the deal. Canopy collisions can happen at any time, not just on deployment or as canopies converge on the landing area. They can happen anytime during the canopy descent. So we don't really have time to talk about all the different unique situations. So I want to talk about just a couple of tips to help us avoid all the many, many situations. Our manuals, super helpful, talk about skills. You rehearse and you practice the skills before every jump, or at least you should. But like Dustin was saying, what I'm talking about is awareness. If you're not acutely aware of what's going on around you, the skills you've rehearsed and practiced may not do you much good. The canopy safety starts before you even deploy. During your skydive, you need to be aware of your altitude as well as where everyone else is in your group. If you've had a good track, you'll have good, clean air. Deploy at a safe altitude and keep your head on a swivel the entire time your canopy is opening. Look where you're going. Look for others coming toward you. Always do a canopy control check, obviously, but only after you've confirmed that you're in the clear. Don't mess with your slider or your booties or anything until you're sure there's no one else anywhere near you. And even then, keep looking all around you no matter what you're doing with your canopy. Another safety tip is to get to your holding area. You should have a predetermined holding area that was part of your plan. So you want to fly towards that area, obviously still stay alert to those around you and those who may also be using the same holding area. Make sure you're not holding in an area that's in the way of anyone else's pattern or the flight line. And because others are using the same holding area, be cognizant of any drastic maneuvers. People like to play around under canopy, which is totally fine, but you still need to be aware of who else is nearby. You can't be doing spirals if other people's are near you. And it's not a good idea to spiral down, to get down really fast when all you're doing is catching up to someone who is naturally faster than you anyway. You can't all land first. So be aware of the levels of those around you. And remember, we want to stagger our landings. The same thing goes for holding in brakes. It might seem like the safer thing to do. I'll just hold up here till everybody else is gone, which might be fine, but you might actually be putting yourself in the way of someone else who descends naturally slower. So we really want to try to not be landing at exactly the same time as anyone else. So play around with your canopy, but have some forethought and awareness about the results of your actions. And sometimes you're just not going to be able to play with your canopy. There's going to be too much traffic or too much risk, and you're going to have to just suck it up and have a more boring canopy ride with no spirals on this time. So there's no time to talk today again about all the potential malfunctions that you can have under a canopy, but we have a really good resource, which is the PIM2A, that you can refresh yourself on some of the common canopy malfunctions, and it gives you some tips about how to deal with those common malfunctions as well. Please do practice your emergency procedures before every jump. So then that brings us to another critical canopy safety skill, which is flying a predictable pattern. It's not just about reaching the target. That's one benefit of a good pattern, but the predictability piece of it is also really important. So when it's time to start your pattern, that means it's time to stop playing. No more S-turns, no deep breaks, no other maneuvers. You fly straight downwind, then straight across for base. Don't cut corners. Stay aware of who's behind you, who's ahead of you, who's entering the pattern. Are you descending faster or slower than you expected? Are you gaining on somebody? You might need to adjust your pattern by turning in earlier or later than you planned to. Check your target. Is it safe to land short or long? If it is, then who cares? Land short or long. Whatever adjustments you make, though, keep them as subtle as possible. Because once you start your landing pattern, chances are there will be other people in that pattern with you or just entering it. They might need to coordinate their actions with yours. So here's the predictable piece. You need to be predictable so that they can merge with you or coordinate their moves with yours. So any sudden moves or changes could cause someone else to have to make sudden moves. This is dangerous for both of you. And guess what? It makes you a dick. So the skydive is not over until you and your parachute are safely on the ground. And my very final note on landing, please, please, please remember, you do not need to land in the bowl or right on the target. You only need to land anywhere within the safe designated landing area, which is usually relatively gigantic. So don't make bad decisions because you're fixated on hitting a dead center. Plan ahead and land safely. And thank you for the eggplant. So that's all I got. The moral of the story is awareness. If you're aware and you don't let your guard down ever under canopy, then you will be able to calmly, maturely, and safely deal with canopy issues that arise. And that brings me to roughly 10 minutes, Allison. I'm 5 minutes away.
Yeah, wow. And there was a ton of information in there. I think we're going to walk away with, don't be a dick under canopy.
Don't be a dick. And if you do that, then everybody will be fine.
There you go. I love that. Does anyone have any questions for Beth? 5
minutes for questions.
We got lots of emojis coming. Some eggplant, some skydivers, hearts, some laughter.
No, I didn't ask for eggplants, but I got eggplants.
There you go. Well, it'll fit right on into my next conversation with me about ethics. So,
hi, Gord.
Beth,
he's blurry, but he's there.
Much. I appreciate that. While you're unsharing your screen, I am going to quickly share mine.
I don't know how to. There you go.
There we go. All right. Well, my name is Allison, as you guys knew. I didn't record the very beginning of this meeting. So for those of you, I'm Allison Cooney, along with my husband, Gord. We're the owners for Skydive Vancouver Island and super excited to be hosting this safety day virtually. I'm going to be covering some areas that are about being informed. So mind me while I work on a couple laptops here. Perfect. Sorry, I'm just going to get back to my other one. All right. So one of the big things that I wanted to talk to you guys about is about staying current. And I think we all could agree that we think staying current means we've got to hammer out 100 jumps a year and do all those things. And while jumping, of course, keeps you current in the sky and with your skills, some of us have been hit by the economy, and maybe we can't afford to do as many jumps as we used to 10 years ago when everyone was doing 10 jumps a day and having that fun stuff. But as important as it is to still be out skydiving as often as you can, You need to realize that skydiving evolves quickly. Procedures change, equipment and best practices shift as we learn more. This is industry-wide. And so one of the other ways to be staying current is to regularly review CSPA manuals and updates, ensuring everyone is aligned with the standards, what's happening. And I'm just going to share my screen here because I want to go through some. I appreciate so many of our presenters have been talking about the PIMS, and I've been talking about resources that are on the CSPA website. And so I just want to share with you, if I can get into all of these best places. So I don't know if I can actually, hopefully you guys can. Well, I'm just going to do that. Hopefully you guys can all see that. So here's the CSPA website, and under safety, you guys can see that there's a section called Safety and Educational Resources. This was added actually last year by some suggestions through the Technical and Safety Committee, and actually some drop zone. We have meetings with the drop zone owners through LTAD twice a year, and so some ideas came up with this. And as you can see, there's different categories. There's stuff for everyone. Here's stuff. There's a great article about ethical accountability in skydiving. We have an article about sexual harassment and assault. We've also got stuff for the skydiver. So use of seatbelts. We have the briefing for the canopy formation and canopy relative work. We have our new, well, not new, it's been updated, the movement reference guide. And as Brian was talking about, and Derek actually mentioned as well, there's some videos here at the top, and these are all about gear checks. We even have some stuff here for riggers. We're building all of this, and of course for coaches and instructors. So we're hoping that through some education and passing it on, some great resources here for you guys to look at. One of the other ones we always talk about is the PIMS. So if you go over to Learn, here are our PIMS. Oh my goodness. And there's been some recent PIM1 updates, and these are the big ones. These are BSRs. There are rules and our technical recommendations, and there's been some stuff updated in that. And then the other one that we can learn some great stuff on is Campera. So on the top of the thing here, by the way, I'm showing you all this because we often get feedback that sometimes the website's a little hard to navigate. So we're hoping we can educate a little bit here. But Campera, there's some great stuff here. But essentially, all of our issues are digital. You can go back a long time, but here's just, an example of the article from, or the newest CSPA that came out. I don't know if it's going to show up for you guys, but here you go. So lots of opportunities to stay informed that way. And so the other ways too are about staying current is our mentorship program. So under the Learn, you see a mentorship program. I'm really excited. Beth was speaking and she had an opportunity. She actually had signed up, and you can sign up to be a mentor, and you can also sign up to be a mentee. And
Neil is here too.
Is Cam here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So last year, you guys are going to have an article about you, but Beth has actually signed up to be a mentor, and Cam and I had been talking, and so she had signed up to be a mentee. And it was a beautiful pairing for the two of them. And this is a great way, whether you are an experienced skydiver looking for discipline-specific mentorship, whether you're a novice skydiver or a new skydiver looking for some beginner stuff. This can even go all the way. Hey, if you're really interested in actually competing and you've got that experience, we have people who have been in competition who are mentors as well. Some people that are actually currently on represent our national Canadian team. It's also an area for coaches, instructors, examiners, and facilitators. We have, if you're a new Coach 1, we have people who are Coach 2s or Coach 3s or instructors, so they can help mentor you through that. And the same with rigging. There's also just navigating the skydiving community. We realize that there are a lot of topics we just don't talk about with skydiving. And some of those are navigating new drop zones. Hey, you're a mom. How do you navigate that with trying to balance your life? One of the big ones as well was coming back from an injury. And so the mentorship program is another way to just stay current. in our sport and what's going on, no matter the situation you have. Another big thing that I just wanted to point out on the website as well, if you go to our home page, I know it needs to look prettier, but we do our best. You'll see at the bottom there, it says events. This event calendar has been up actually for a couple of years, and we have been driving it hard. And so the nice thing is, although the calendar still needs work, look at this. We've got Coach 1 courses up there, and this is across Canada. We've got Salmon Arms Boogie. We've got some angle camps over in Quebec and Ontario. We have a Jump Master course happening in Salmon Arm. We have a PFFI course happening. So you can look through each month. There's a Keen to Lean camp. So you're able to educate yourself on some of the camps that you can take, the skill camps, Canopy Flight 1 courses. And these are all across Canada. They are put in by organizers or drop zone owners. So obviously not are all there. But staying current, if you can't jump, say every weekend, maybe you just budget and plan to take a Canopy course, or maybe you're going to take a FS course, or maybe you're going to take that angle camp with Keen to Lean. So just getting in those camps, because it's really specific to skills and keeping you safe. And all those camps are designed around safety and progression. So that's a really good thing to budget for and plan for. Skills camps are amazing. And then the last thing I just wanted to show you as well, if you like social media, I don't know if it's going to share this. Is it going to share this, or I have to share a new screen? I think I have to share a new screen. So bear with me for a second. I'm going to share a new screen. The other way to stay current with what's happening around you is, social media. Woohoo! There you go. So I'm on this CSPA Facebook page. There's also an Instagram page. But as you can see here, there's a lot of stuff that's getting posted on here. Good old Garth Brown. He just got an award. So there's some fun stuff on here, but there's also things about athlete development funding, the calendar. Here's a link to our occurrence and risk mitigation reporting. So being on social media as well can at least give you some of those links that you need. If you look here, this will link me straight to, it probably won't do it on there, but straight to some CSPA stuff for our AIM reports. So speaking of AIM reports, so that was all about my staying current. There's many ways to stay current. So speaking about AIM reports, I think for me, AIM reports, you guys all know at Skydive Vancouver Island, I'm very tough on them. For you guys that don't know me, I am I'm the safety management system analyst, and I analyze all the AIM reports that get redacted and get sent to me for CSPA. I also work with some partners in the USPA and Australian Parachute Federation and British Skydiving, and we kind of pool our stuff together. I also work with the PIA to analyze all of this and try to strengthen that. So when I'm hard on you guys about filling out AIM reports, that's why. So AIM reporting thrives in an environment where communication is open, judgment-free, and timely. When individuals feel comfortable sharing what they've seen or experienced, the entire community benefits from clearer insight into emerging risks and operational realities. Reporting is never about assigning blame. It is about gathering information that helps us understand patterns, prevent recurrence, and strengthen our collective safety culture. Every observation, whether it's a concern, a near miss, or a suggestion for improvement, adds valuable context to the bigger picture. And so I'm just going to share with you guys. Oh, I'm not even on my screen. Sorry. I just want to share with you guys on our CSPA website again. Actually, I'm just going to go right here. So under safety, you guys can see occurrence and risk mitigation reporting. That is AIM reports. You have the AIM reports up here. This is your fillable forms to fill out. We did last year separate them. So as experienced jumpers, if you have had an incident, you can go straight to that form, fill it out. If you've noticed something during packing, or if you're a rigger or just doing your own stuff. Sorry, my dog is freaking out. We do have one for equipment now. This is to try to help us identify issues before they are actually issues. So for example, it's Jack. Everybody knows how fun Jack is. You see excessive wear on lines, or Brian, as you mentioned, you saw that the rings were, your 3-ring system wasn't set properly. It's those kind of equipment things that we are trying to track and working with manufacturers to be able to go back to that. So that's the actual AIM reports. But here's a big one for you guys is, in the occurrence and risk mitigation area is all of the history. So we go back to 2019. We actually have more data. But here is the summary analysis. You can look under here for summary analysis. This is last year's. And it has a big report on all the stats. If you're a stat nerd like me, you'll love it. But under here as well is the actual, that's the wrong one. AIM reports. These are the actual AIMs from last year that we received. And so they're categorized here. So if I wanted to go to accidents that happened, I can just click on there. And this actually is separated by all the AIM reports that we received. It has the details, the facts about the jump, what the recommendation was given from the DZs, and what CSPA recommends. So you can go through that. They are updated. We try very hard to update them monthly, but that sometimes is not always the case, but they are updated. So everyone should be able to actively be watching all of that as the year progresses. So one of the big things I just wanted to take out of the AIM reports for you guys is that currently I am working with the PIA, which is the Technical Safety Committee for the Parachuting Industry Association. So it's a wider look. And we're analyzing hard openings. It's become a trend, and specifically around serious injuries around it. So if you're someone who has experienced a hard opening, be it as on student canopy, your own rig, as a tandem instructor, we are starting to track that and actually report it at the bigger level. You don't have to get hurt on it. You could land safely, but you might have just been winded. We just are trying to identify why we're seeing occurrences of hard openings. So if you have any questions about AIM reports, you can contact me at any time, and I can help you on a bigger level for that. So that's AIM reports. The last thing I just wanted to, and I just encourage you all to go read the report. There'll also be a condensed report in Campera coming up on the next issue. The last thing I just want to touch base on before we get into our SVI specific stuff, and I do apologize because we are 7:58, so we will run just a tad over. But this to me is probably the most important thing, and it's about cultivating a culture of safety in our sport. So skydiving safety is a shared responsibility. Every jumper contributes to a safer environment through preparation, awareness, and adherence to procedures, as so many of our presenters talked about today. We want to encourage curiosity and continuous learning about equipment, aircraft procedures, canopy flight, and emergency protocols. Normalize asking questions and speaking up when something in the skydive plan, gear check, or conditions feel off. We want that normalized for everyone. And I ask you to model disciplined behaviors through gear checks, thoughtful decision-making, and respect for such things as weather, aircraft, or drop zone policies and procedures. And also, we all love our beer finds, but also celebrate those good catches, the safe outs, the conservative choices, and strong judgment, not just performance or jump numbers. So let's celebrate those people who make good, safe decisions as well. There's also safety interactions and behaviors on the ground. A safe culture extends beyond the skydive. How we treat one another directly affects the well-being of the entire community. So in CSPA PIM 5, the standards of integrity, they're what guide our conduct. It's through honesty, accountability, professionalism, and respect are expected at all times. Integrity means addressing concerns respectfully, reporting issues transparently, and supporting others in making safe choices. There's a zero tolerance approach, and that applies to behaviors that compromise safety or well-being, including harassment, bullying, discrimination, impairment, or actions that undermine trust. Leaders and experienced jumpers set the tone by modeling humility, inclusivity, and responsible behavior on the ground. We want to recognize and reinforce positive behaviors, supportive communication, respectful conflict resolution, and proactive problem solving strengthen the entire community. So that's my piece on that. Beth actually mentioned it as well. We just strongly encourage everyone to have a look, and I'm just going to share. So EPs, I'm excited to say that hopefully CSPA might be creating some EP videos of them for themselves, but that is a little bit away. So let me just share this for a reminder for all of you guys. For EP videos, these are the ones that I believe APF, Australian Parachute Federation, had created. These three in particular, I strongly encourage you guys to watch. I will put the links in at some point here. But the decision-making one is actually really good. But obviously this will go over some low-speed malfunctions, high-speed malfunctions. And as Beth mentioned, the EPs are also, you can find them in Pin 2A as well. So before I think I stopped sharing. Sorry, guys. Let me just share that again. And I'm almost done. Yeah. Beth, that was longer than you. All right, there we go. So this is going to conclude the overall one, not specific to Skydive Vancouver Island. So I thank everyone for attending. If you want to keep staying on, please stay on. But before you go, this is a safety seminar series. It starts, of course, with our with our safety day that we're just having here. Next Tuesday, it'll start a little bit earlier. They start at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And they're about an hour and a half long. Next Tuesday, we're going to have a safety seminar for CSPA coaches and instructors. If you're someone who's just interested even in becoming a coach, please feel free to attend. They're welcome to anybody who wants to attend them. And the following week on the 14th, we'll have one for CSPA riggers and packers. And so if you pack your own rig, I strongly encourage you to come to this. And I should mention that Dustin Renz will actually be doing the presentation on April 7th, and Jared Cole, who is the Technical and Safety Committee Chair for CSPA, will be presenting on the 14th. And last but not least, to wrap up our safety seminar, Derek Smith is going to be giving one on the 21st about the foundations of Group FS. We've done a lot of other ones in the past with wingsuiting and movement flying, and it was time to do some Group FS stuff. We'll be posting, they will be recorded, we'll be posting them. We do have our SVI, I think they're SVI safety seminars on the YouTube channel. I'll make sure I have all that for you guys as well. And last but not least, all our events and camps. Oh my gosh, we have a lot on the plans and more to come. Most notably, I should let you guys all know we have a JM, a Jumpmaster course coming up April 24th to 26th. There's spots available. It's a great way to start your season and getting worked in there. If you have questions about this and want to register, you can either reach out to myself or Dustin Renz. If you go into, you can just email us and we can send you the link. And we also have a PFFI course happening May 28th to June 1st. So those two are kind of the really upcoming ones. But we've got lots of stuff happening kind of throughout the season. So, and we do post all of these on the event calendar through CSPA. And I'm going to just stop sharing before I introduce Gord. Sorry, working on all these computers. It's not fun. And perfect. All right. Any questions from anybody? I appreciate you guys' patience with time. Technically, it's 8:05. We got through the main safety day. But anyone have any questions? Awesome. I'm really excited for the season. For those of you who are going to think about jumping at Skydive Vancouver Island, or would like to just stay on because you do jump at Skydive Vancouver Island, the next portion of this will probably only take about 15 to 20 minutes. Gord says 3 minutes. Gord says 3 minutes. I would say 10. I'm going to let Gord jump on here and just talk to you guys for Skydive Vancouver Island. If you're planning to leave the group right now, thank you very much from my husband and I. And of course, I cannot thank enough all our presenters today. You guys are truly what makes this happen. Without you guys, nobody would want to listen to me for 2 hours. So I do appreciate all your hard work.